الحمد لله استهل بالحمد خير ما نزل إليك خمسا تبدأ.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Honorable listeners, today we discuss the 7th juz of the Quran. It is the balance of Surah Al-Ma'idah and then Surah Al-An'am. Surah Al-Ma'idah, we discussed Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala had revealed many different rules and regulations, and according to the majority of the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum, that no ayah was abrogated of Surah Al-Ma'idah because it was the last of the surahs that was revealed to Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam concerning the rules and the laws of the Shariat. The juz begins with وَإِذَا سَمِعُوا مَا أُنزِلَ إِلَى الرَّسُولِ تَرَى أَعْيُنَهُمْ تَفِيضُ مِنَ الدَّمْعِ مِمَّا عَرَفُوا مِنَ الْحَقِّ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا آمَنَّا فَاكْتُبْنَا مَعَ الشَّاهِدِينَ. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala speaks about a delegation of the Christians that came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this delegation was in actual fact the delegation sent by Najashi from Ethiopia, from Abyssinia. We know Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the days of Makkah had sent a group of Sahaba to Abyssinia so that they could preserve their deen and practice upon their deen and make the ibadat of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Now, one such incident that had taken place was when Sayyidina Ja'far radiallahu ta'ala anhu was called by the Najashi to explain Islam, because the Quraysh had sent a delegation making allegations against Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in. Sayyidina Ja'far radiallahu ta'ala anhu was guided by Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, and in his presentation of Islam, Sayyidina Ja'far radiallahu ta'ala anhu had recited from Surah Maryam, and how apt it was that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala spoke about Sayyida Maryam radiallahu ta'ala anha, and Najashi began to cry. Now Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had made hijrah, and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in Medina Munawwara when those Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in had decided that now the conditions are good in Medina Munawwara. There is no threat of persecution. Hence they decided to go back to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Najashi, the king of Ethiopia, sent with them a deputation of leading scholars from amongst his people to present his compliments before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In certain narrations, this group comprised of 70 individuals, out of which 60 were from Abyssinia itself and the balance were from Syria. When they came to Medina Munawwara, they were attired in coarse clothing, and this deputation presented itself before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They requested Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam to recite from that which Allah Ta'ala had revealed to him, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam recited Surah Yasin before them. As they heard the surah, tears flowed from their eyes, and they all began to say how similar these revelations, these verses are to that which was originally revealed to Sayyidina Isa alayhi salatu wassalam. So Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is making reference to this, وَإِذَا سَمِعُوا مَا أُنزِلَ إِلَى الرَّسُولِ, that when they heard what was revealed to the Rasul, Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, تَرَى أَعْيُنَهُمْ تَفِيضُ مِنَ الدَّمْعِ, then you had seen their eyes that flowed with tears, mimma arafu min al-haqq, because they had recognized what the truth is. يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا آمَنَّا. Immediately they said, O our Rabb, we believe, فَاكْتُبْنَا مَعَ الشَّاهِدِينَ, and scribe us down amongst the shahideen, those who bear witness. Nonetheless, they returned to Ethiopia. Najashi had embraced Islam, and then he sent his son as a leader of another delegation to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with a letter from him. Unfortunately, the vessel in which they traveled had sunk, and that meeting did not take place with our Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Hence Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala begins the surah with this incident that had taken place. And I think an important issue, an important aspect is that how much of the Quran do we listen to all the time? And does our eyes ever shed a bit of tears when we recognize that this is the word of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala? Nonetheless, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala thereon goes to explain the very important aspect with regards to the important part of our Sharia, that halal and haram is the priority and prerogative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever Allah has made halal will remain halal, and whatever Allah ta'ala has made haram will remain haram, and there is no individual that has the right to change halal and haram. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the prohibition of alcohol, gambling and other aspects forever and ever till the day of Qiyamah. In these verses, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala also speaks about the Baytul Haram, جَعَلَ اللَّهُ الْكَعْبَةَ الْبَيْتَ الْحَرَامَ قِيَامًا لِلنَّاسِ, that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala had made Kaaba, Allah Ta'ala had made the Baytullah a qiyam. In other words, a source of establishment, stability for the whole of mankind, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had made it a center and a focus of hidayah. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about another very important aspect. قُلْ لَا يَسْتَوِي الْخَبِيثُ وَالطَّيِّبُ وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَكَ كَثْرَةُ الْخَبِيثِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam to say that al-khabith, that which is impure, wat-tayyib, and that is pure, will never be equal and will never be the same. Now, one important aspect to the background of the revelation of the surah is that there was some people that would indulge in the purchase and sale of alcohol, and hence Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, when He made alcohol haram forever and ever to the day of Qiyamah, one of those individuals came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said that I have with me the savings from the profits of the alcohol that I had sold. If I were to spend some of this in good and pious causes, would it be beneficial for me? Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that if you have to spend it on emerging in the path of Allah or going for Hajj or any other meritorious deed otherwise in the Sharia, it would not be even worth the weight of the feather of a mosquito. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not accept anything other than that which is pure and halal. From here we understand, and we understand this in terms of business all the time, that we speak about the value of other currencies, the devaluations of other currencies. So insofar as akhirat is concerned, all of this is devaluated in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks regarding Sayyidina Isa alayhi salatu wassalam and the surah that acquired its name, إِذْ قَالَ الْحَوَارِيُّونَ يَا عِيسَى بْنَ مَرْيَمَ هَلْ يَسْتَطِيعُ رَبُّكَ يُنَزِّلَ عَلَيْنَا مَائِدَةً مِنَ السَّمَاءِ. When the Hawariyun, the disciples of Sayyidina Isa alayhi salatu wassalam, made a request to Isa alayhi salam to show them a miracle, that Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala descends from the sky, a tablecloth laden with food, then they will get the strength of the Iman. Isa alayhi salatu wassalam protested, and Isa alayhi salatu wassalam said, Ittaqullah, fear Allah ta'ala in kuntum mu'mineen, if you are real and true believers. A true believer does not look for these type of miracles. He has firm Iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and hence the surah has been named Surah Al-Ma'idah. Going to Surah Al-An'am, it comprises of 165 verses, and Surah Al-An'am is a Makki surah. That is, it was revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam before his Mubarak Hijrah. Now, one important aspect that we learn in Surah Al-Ma'idah is that being a Makki surah, we find the very basics of Islamic belief, our Tawheed, oneness in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then Risala, our belief in the Nubuwah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Akhirah, and that is our belief in the Akhirah. But there are two basic approaches that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses, and one is called Taqreer, where Allah ta'ala addresses directly, and one is Talqeen, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala persuades a person. Now in Taqreer we will find in Surah Al-An'am, Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala asks the questions very directly with regards to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who created the skies, the earth, the entire universe. And then Allah ta'ala says, Qul lillah, say it all belongs to Allah. Qulillah, say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had created it. And then we find in Talqeen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala narrates the incidents of the Anbiya alayhimus salatu wassalam, and hence in this way Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala speaks about his Tawheed, and Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala speaks about his oneness. Towards the end of the juz, Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala speaks about the famous incident regarding Sayyiduna Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam, that when he had seen the various phenomena and the creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the universe, he said that this is Allah. Then he said that my Allah does not diminish. This is my Allah. Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala is the greatest, and Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala is the creator of all things. May Allah ta'ala give us the tawfiq and the ability to practice upon this beautiful kitab of Allah. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyil kareem wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
بالحمد حين تقرأ بالحمد حين تقرأ